Hi, today we're going to go over volume of prisms and cylinders. So this is day 3 of chapter 9. And so I would recommend you get your formula sheet out and you keep adding these to your formula sheet. So the first one is the volume of a cube. As you guys know, a cube has all equal sides. And so that means like all these little segments here, all over the entire, figure are going to be congruent. The easiest formula is just to take one of these side lengths and cube it. So you do have to work with your calculator. I mean, you can go 4 times 4 times 4. I mean, that's one possibility. Most calculators have at least like a caret. So if you can find this button, it looks like this, you can push 4 and then the caret and then the 3, and it'll raise it to the third power. So 4 to the third is 64. So mess around with your calculator and see if you can get that. And if you can't figure it out, you can just do 4 times 4 times 4. Now, we are now doing volume. So this is units, which is centimeters cubed. Now for the volume of your prism, the formula is pretty basic. It is just capital B times H. Capital B means the area of the base times the height. Now, again, the base and the height together, it must form a right angle. Okay. Now, one of the biggest problems students have is when they look at this, they don't know which side is the base, and it's not necessarily just the bottom. So when you look at it, you should see like two of the same shapes. So, and they should be parallel. That's the biggest part. So I see this triangle and I see this other triangle, and they are parallel with each other, and they're connected with these little tiny segments. Okay, the base is the triangle. So I always like to do my work separately. When you look at your base, you have to determine what it is. It is a triangle. So you have to note the formula or just look it up on your sheet, which is lowercase b times h over 2. So let's focus in on this triangle. Do we know the base and height of that triangle? Sure, it's 10 and the 7. So 10 times 7 over 2. So 70 over 2 is 35. Now the height is how far apart those two triangles are from each other. So that is this length here. Let's erase that. So how far apart those two triangles are is that number, which they tell you is 4, and that is your height. So for volume, again, we're doing base times height. So 35 times 4, which is 140. And volume is always units cubed, so feet cubed. All right, so let's move on to a cylinder. And guess what? The formula is still base times height. Now the base now is a circle, right? Now, maybe you know the formula for a circle. If you don't, I listed it here. And I know it's a weird pi symbol. I don't know why it looks like that. But the circle formula is pi r squared. And then times it by the height. So let's find the area of the base, which is a circle, which is pi r squared. And whenever we have pi, remember we leave it in terms of pi, so we just look for the radius and you plug it in and square it. So my radius here is 4, or it's not 4, is 9. Okay, so let's plug that in. Pi times 9 squared, so that's 81 pi, and that is my base. My height is how far apart the two circles are from each other, and the circles are the bases. So my height here is 26. So for volume, base times height, I have 81 pi times 26. Okay, so you don't put the pi into the calculator. I'm just going to type in 81 times 26. And I get 2106, and you just have to drop down that pi symbol. And again, inches cubed. That's it. Okay, so I would like for you to pause the video and then try these and then come back and we'll go over them. Okay, so hopefully you have already tried these. Now both formulas is base times height. So the formula is pretty easy to remember. Base times height. Now you have to look at the base and determine what shape the base is. So my base is this triangle, and I know this is right angle because it shows me on the bottom base. Okay, so my base is a triangle, which is lowercase b times h over 2. So that's 3 times 4 over 2. So 12 over 2 is 6. And my height, how far apart are those two triangles? Well, that would be this number that is in yellow. So my height is 2. That's a weird 2. Okay, so my volume is 6 times 2, which is 12 centimeters cubed. Okay, next one. Again, volume is base times height. My base is a circle, which is pi radius squared. My radius is 8. So that is 64 pi. My height is this number here, which is 6. So my volume base times height is 64 pi times 6, which is 384 pi inches cubed. Okay, so now we have to work a little bit backwards on these. We have to find the measurements, use the measurements given to solve for x. Okay, so this is a cube, and we know the formula is sides cubed equals volume. Okay, so let's take what we know and plug it in. So instead of the sides, I'm going to say it's x, and that is supposed to be to the third, and my volume is 100. Now, we're used to taking square roots. This is not a square root. This is a cube root. And if you're in Algebra 2, you probably know how to do this. What we need to do, now, this is like on a side note. If I had x squared equals 100, I would square root that. And we know the square root of 100 is 10. And we know that works because the square root and the square are opposites and they cancel. But if I square root this is a 2 power, and this is a 3 power, and it just doesn't work out. So I have to cube root it, and the cube root cancels. So I have to cube root the 10, or the 100. Okay, so I need to know what times what equals 100, right? Because up here, in this previous example, it told you the answer was 10 because you know 10 times 10 is 100. Okay, so on my calculator, it's the same button as the caret. I'd have to push the second function first. So look behind the caret, and mine says x and then has a square root. Doesn't say anything inside. It looks just like this. So I would push 3 and then my button and then 100 and then equal. So let me do that real quick. Okay, and it's a gross decimal. Okay, so each side is going to be, my calculator says 4.6415888, on and on. Okay, so I'm going to round it off to 4.6. It is rounded off. It's not going to be exact because if I do 4.6 times 4.6 times 4.6 or to the third power, I end up with 97.336, which isn't exactly 100. But that's what happens when we round, guys. Okay, so this was a weird one. I just wanted to show you how it worked. The answer rounded is 4.6. Now, On a side note, let's see how much better of an answer we get if we say our answer is 4.64. If I cube that, 4.64 to the third, guys, that's such a better answer. I get 99.897. And if I just cube 4.6, I get 97.336. So you can see what we're trying to get to 100. Rounding to the tenths really doesn't do real well. So that's something to think about. All right. Let's do one more. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so we have a rate cylinder. So the volume is base times height. And the formula for your base is pi radius squared. So let's take everything that we know and plug it into the equation. So my volume is 4561. I don't know the radius, but I know the height, right? The height is here, the height is 12. Okay, so I need to solve for x. And so to solve for x, I have to move the pi and the 12. So let's divide by 12 pi. Now, this time, we're going to have to enter the pi symbol. 4561 divided by 12, and then I am using the pi symbol. Okay, so I'm going to leave this answer in my calculator. I'm not going to round it off for the reasons that we just talked about a second ago. This is the answer that's on my calculator. 1194.067008. Now, I need x, not x squared. So to undo it, I'm going to square root both sides. And you can do that without having to type it all in. And each calculator is different. On my calculator, I have an A and S button, and it's at the bottom, like right by it's like behind the negative sign. If you put the square root first and then push the second button and then the A and S, it pops in that previous answer. So you don't have to type it all back in, which is really nice. And so when I do that, I get 34.555. So let's round it off to the tenth, so 34.6. And the unit is, let's see, what is this? What are we finding? We're finding x, so that is the radius. So that's just meters. Okay, so as usual, you have a Canvas assignment. You will submit work. As you can see, I write everything out. It's very clear. You have no reason to, not understand, how I get my answers. And that's how I want to see your work as well. So please let me know if you have any questions. And thanks. I'll see you guys later.